My name is Andrew Reimers. I am the Customer Success Manager at Zizo Technologies, and really just excited to be here, cover the basics of effective goal setting and performance management. And by the end of today's session, we'll have uncovered the ways to identify goals. We're going to be setting smart objectives and tracking your progress towards achieving them. And hopefully together, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, I'm here to learn as much as everyone else. But we're going to learn about the benefits of effective goal setting, different types of goals, some practical tips for overcoming common obstacles, using real world examples to illustrate the challenges you might face and ways that you can overcome them. And if all goes well, and knowing the panel that we have here today, why wouldn't it? You'll be leaving with a real understanding of how to manage performance and achieve success, hopefully in your professional life and your personal life as well. So to all of our attendees today, again, thank you. If you at any point during the conversation have a question, feel free to throw it into the chat, and we're going to try to leave some time toward the end of the webinar to answer and address some of those questions. So don't hesitate to do that. But without any further ado, let's get to our panel. If you couldn't tell by the gray in some of these beards, there's a wealth of knowledge and experience on this team, and it really can't be overstated. First off, I want to introduce Jimmy Shabbat. He here is the founder and CEO of Zizo Technologies. I mean, where do I start, Jimmy? Boasts an extensive portfolio of business ventures, but mainly for the past 20 years, Jimmy's primary focus has been his work in the accounts receivable management and collections industry. His ability to identify challenges facing management and generate innovative solutions using expertise in data analysis, AI, and gamification. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there who can tell you what the problems are, but there's very few people that really look to solve them. And Jimmy is absolutely one of those guys. It's my honor to, this is my second stint working for Jimmy. But finally, you know, one more note on him as an enterprising business pioneer. He's developed a digital initiative centered around gamification to address the paradigm shifts currently plaguing the workforce. Jimmy, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. So excited to talk to you. Thank you.
Really excited to be here, Andrew. Quite a comprehensive introduction there. Thank you. It made me look really good. So I'm excited to have the conversation. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Our next guest, I've had the pleasure of knowing for just about a year now. Actually, he has 20 years of experience in the accounts receivable space, including 15 years as the owner and operator of his own agency. This Buffalo State alum is currently running things at Great Lakes Processing Services, and still working as an active agent as well, man. You just can't stop this guy. I'm especially excited to hear his input today, and it's my pleasure to welcome you, Mr. Joe Younger.
How's everybody doing today? Pleasure to meet everyone.
And last but certainly not least, I don't even know what to say about this guy. He and I met 23 years ago working at a record store in a rundown mall. Look at us, man. Who would have thought? You and me. Here we are today. But I had the pleasure of working for him again about 12 years ago when I was working as a collector myself. And then here again at Zizo Technologies. He is a leader, he's a mentor, he's a father, he's a husband. Most importantly, he's my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody in between, let me introduce to you Titus Tallchief. Titus, welcome. Thanks for being here, man.
No, I appreciate it. Wow, what an intro. Jimmy, I feel it. I'm gonna have you write my bios moving forward, Andy. And
I know.
23 years?
23 years ago we met.
Wow.
Time flies.
Time flies.
And here we are. Here we are. Imagine us back then looking into the future to today. But I don't want to get into any of that right now. And you know, I think we should honestly just dive right into it. I'm going to throw this first question out there. You guys feel free if you have an answer. You know, I trust you guys won't step on each other. But let me just throw a question out there. And maybe Jimmy, if you want to start it out, then we'll go down the line. Just some very basic insight into your experience managing teams, especially in today's culture.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the type of team that you're managing in terms of management style. Right now it's so dynamic with, work from home, whether you're working in person or, remotely, it makes a big difference whether you're in a call center environment or in a creative sort of environment. It's going to be kind of different management styles. But when you're working with teams, I think one of the most important things, and there's 100 different directions I can go with this, but I feel like obviously communication, and there's so many different forms of communication now, some more effective than others, depending on the generation, depending on the individual. But transparency is really, I think, one of the key items is just, getting as much information and having it accessible for everybody to know. And that's, I think we'll dive deeper into kind of transparency of data, right? Of where, what the expectations are, and then where they are relative to those expectations. But I feel that, being transparent, with information so that way everybody understands what's happening within your team and the environment, I think is a critical point of managing your team, alongside of how you communicate that information.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Titus, Joe, anything you want to add to that?
I think to second Jimmy there, it is right. It's a very interesting time to be in that position, to have to lead teams of any sort with the remote aspect factored in. The workforce is sprinkled with multiple generations at this point, and how you're communicating to those generations, as you referenced, we're getting a little long in the tooth here. So we now have seen the different generations and the changing of technology, that's changing in the mindsets. So how you communicate clearly is one aspect, and how you reach these newer generations as opposed to the way we used to do things 23 years ago, vastly different. So you got to constantly have your finger on the pulse and be trying to forever engage and educate yourself in what the changes are and how to keep up with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Joe. I know the team that you manage, when we talk about different generations, I know that you're across the spectrum. You find the same thing? Communication is different depending on who you're speaking with?
Definitely, communication is also something that's very important when you're dealing with different types of individuals. You got to pretty much know what they want, what their needs are. So pretty much when I deal with the staff, I don't deal with them. Obviously, if you have a goal, an office goal, you deal with it as a whole. But when you speak with the individuals personally, you want to figure out what makes them go, what makes them tick, what are their goals in life, and what things do they want, what things are they going after, and that helps you set a goal for them that reach the common goal of the office. You know what I mean? So when you have a percent example, say our owner sets a goal, he sets a number. How can we each individually get to that number? By using communication, by using goals, by using tools and the resources that we have at hand to accomplish that goal as a whole.
It's a really good point. I want to just point out that, Joe, you made. It's, we tend to group people by generation. And I think it's probably my generation that does that more and more, because this newer generation, Gen Z, and even prior to them, their predecessors, millennials, were just so vastly different than prior generations. But it is important to remember that even within the generations or across the spectrum, individuals are individuals. They're different personalities. And you're right, it is important to get to know each person by who they are, not necessarily by which category they fall into, generationally speaking. So great point, Joe.
Right, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. So let me throw this out there for you guys then. What tactics have you traditionally used to motivate your teams and also track performance?
If I'll jump on that first. Using, and especially in the last X amount of years, there's so much data out there for every aspect of our lives at this point. I'll get notifications telling me how my daily calorie intake has been. I can get stats on how my driving was. Was I braking too hard, too fast? What's my screen time? How was my workout? So, and that plays into education, workforce, everything. And using data is one of the best ways to clearly and easily communicate to any individual, team, organization, how the performance has been, what are the patterns, what are the trends, And using that information, you can clearly, set some goals to move forward and have full alignment top down to reach whatever business objectives you have and are setting. And in doing so, it's not just made up. You can clearly show what those statistics show to people. And that, that's again, back to Jimmy's his comment on communication. Once you communicate that type of transparency and show it, it builds trust and builds buy-in. So it makes everything moving forward a lot easier.
Yeah, and if I can kind of ride on that, it's, we talk about, I think your question was more about motivation, right? I think data is the information used to help create motivation. And, for me and the organizations that I ran historically, and the industries that we're in, traditionally they're gamified, right? And what I mean by gamified is there's a lot of competition, right? And like, hey, who's going to win this contest? Who's going to be the best agent in this period, this month, or this week? And, usually you attach a reward to that. So it's about creating healthy competition and, kind of pushing everybody to their best performance, and then giving a reward to the person who comes out on top. There's inherent problems with that, and we over the years have learned a lot about those problems, and we can probably address those in a different question. And we've learned from those lessons, and we've continued to move around. But I think that anytime you have a healthy competition, it's a way to motivate people and to engage them. Joe, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Right. Healthy competition, I think, also helps. And basically, just to piggyback and go back to the data and analytics. So obviously, I'm a sports guy. So when we're doing with sports now, analytics is a big key to how they measure player success, how they measure how much playing time they're going to get, how much time they're going to spend on the field, what they need to work on, whether they are great suits, whether they're great attributes, what are they bad at, and where do they lack in what areas. So typically with the goal setting, what I like to typically do with goal setting is set a goal that they can accomplish, and then we stretch that goal based off of how you accomplish that particular one goal. Say, for example, I don't like when individuals set an audacious goal. I want to hit a 50 this month. Let's be realistic. What did you hit last month? So as opposed to if you hit say, for example, I'm speaking in the form of collections, obviously, because that's the industry that I'm in. So if you hit a projected number, or you have a projected number, let's improve that by 7 to 10x. Let's not go 100x. And then you disappoint yourself. So next month when we're setting goals, it messes with you mentally because you didn't set the goal that you hit the previous time aboard. So let's do it step by step, and then let's get to the goal brick by brick, step by step. And then we'll be able to come back and we'll be able to review analytics. We'll be able to review the data, and then we can be able to communicate in form of setting your next goal. And then hopefully next month, next week, tomorrow, we can be able to adjust and see if we have to pivot and do what we need to do to get you to that goal.
Excellent. Well said, man. Jimmy, you kind of made mention of this, and I actually wanted to put a pin in it and wanted to come back to it. You mentioned some of the previous challenges in tracking and managing, that you've had in the past with some of the traditional methods, but you've created some tools to help with that. I was hoping you could just provide a little bit more color into that and how you use tech tools to help resolve the issues you were running into.
Yeah, I think, first let me address what the problems were. And I'm sure a lot of people who are here and watching this webinar can relate is, when you're running contests and it's pretty much everybody's on the same playing field, you're going to have a distinct advantage between your veterans and your maybe your new hires or people who may not be as strong. And, when you're constantly running these contests and the same people are winning all of the contests, it becomes a demotivating factor for the majority of your team. So, in the beginning, there's a little bit of energy, everybody's kind of on the same pace, and then, your top performers kind of pull away a little bit, and then everybody else is like, why even bother? So, but then even when you change it up, you try to make it a little bit fairer and maybe give raffle tickets away for every time somebody closes a deal, and then you get a low performer that wins the top prize, then that's, you got disgruntled veterans that are on the team saying, hey, I was the top performer here. That's not fair that somebody else wins the prize. So, we leverage technology to offset that. Number one, creating ways where people are challenged constantly creating micro rewards where people don't have to compete against anybody else but themselves. Creating rank levels where expectations are measured by your experience levels and making them achievable is part of what kind of Joe was talking about earlier, where you don't want things that are unachievable because it's demotivating, and then why even bother setting goals? But also even with contests, creating the ability to handicap, right? So giving people, level playing fields, so that way a rookie can compete against a superstar and still have the same opportunity to win, comparing it, measuring him against his or her expectations versus the superstar's actual numbers. So it's important to try to make it motivational for everybody. Fair and objective, transparent are the three keywords that I always use. When everybody trusts that the system is fair, they have that trust with their organization, they have their trust with their leaders, their leadership, they have the trust with the system, and they're going to work more honestly towards, hitting their goals. Objective, again, using data. It's not trusting somebody's opinion of you or their thoughts of you. It's using real life data that is going to be the measuring stick for it. And then transparency, just having that available and as close to real time, gives people that they can see that rule or that measuring stick. They can see how far they're going in that. So those are all some of the tools. I mean, there's a lot more, but to answer your question, how we've been able to kind of defeat the negative aspects of gamifying work.
Excellent, thank you. Titus, I want to throw one your way, if you don't mind. So you have an extensive background in managing teams. Now, I know very well your background and your work. I didn't get into all of it into your intro, or we would have been here forever. But I want to know, honestly, man, what are some of the most effective strategies you've used when it comes to setting goals in managing performance?
Like you said, it has been a while, and the methods have constantly evolved and grown over the years. Jimmy just referenced some of the issues and pitfalls and or challenges we've run into over the years in this space. And again, I'll go back with the development and the advancements in technology. It has made it that much better and easier to work with people and manage them and lead them, because when you have the data, and again, I'm circling back to data because I'm data driven. It makes it so much easy to communicate that to somebody and show for that buy-in, for that trust, to get them to see, all right, you're right, and then you can reverse engineer from there to see what small tweaks you have to make in your personal habits, your effort, your technique to have the next level success. And that's what we're all gunning for. And so again, it went back, if I'm going back, being exposed to something, for anybody who's old enough, there's probably everybody on here, the 1 Minute Manager book. That book, I don't know, early 80s, still resonates in the basic foundations of how to manage people. Now take that, and if you can evolve and use some of the technology, and it's simple methods. You show the data, you give clear goals. If you give them the tools like Jimmy just referenced, using the technology and giving that to them, make it an even playing field. And when there's transparency in what is expected, what can be accomplished, as Joe referenced, if you just making up numbers and saying everybody do it, not everybody can have the same results in the same way. And you want to try to uniform your entire organization. You can't have everybody doing their own thing. Using that technology, using the data, it makes it easier to motivate, lead, push people. And then once you have that type of alignment and synergy going on, they will start motivating themselves. And again, I'll second another point that Jimmy touched, is it's not always team versus team, person versus person. If you can do it right and allow some of those methods into and instill that into people, they will do it themselves. If you show them that, if you give them the option, you show them the tools, you show them the data, and you show them the insights, they can use that and they can push themselves. I got to go back to my early point. Every notification I get on my watch, phone, car, it naturally tells me I can do better in some way. Either great, you've had success, but I could probably do a little bit more. and I'm going to push myself to do a little better, do another rep, do a better mile, make a little bit more money, whatever the case is, whatever it is, it's going to actually give me that insight, and I'm going to push for it. And when you can do that across, when you can scale that, the effects of small increases and tweaks have huge ramifications company-wide and towards your bottom line or towards your life, health, whatever it is.
I do want to kind of answer that question as well. On actually behalf of Titus, I think the original question was what's one of the most effective kind of ways to motivate. And I remember Titus and Danny, who was the director at the time, used to do every Friday a collaborative goal, right? And so, you said earlier, it's not always about one-on-one or one versus everybody or team versus team. But they would set a target for Friday and say, hey, this was our goal for the week, and this is what you need to get to the goal for the week. And it probably had a little bit more. And they say, whenever you guys collectively reach this goal, you can have the rest of the day, paid. And that would create a certain level of energy, and collaboration and just teamwork, throughout the office. And that would carry forward, and they would go out and go to happy hour after work and together still, and that would build kind of camaraderie and the culture within the organization. So I think that was one of the most effective motivational tools that they use, and we made sure that we incorporated that in our tool set as well.
And speaking of our tool set, Joe, I love your experience and I love what you're bringing to the table today, because you started out as an agent, you're now managing the floor while still being an agent over at Great Lakes Processing Services. So I wanted to, because you're on both sides of the aisle, so as an agent and a manager, can you share some of your experience with goal setting, maybe from an agent's perspective, and then maybe some of what you do now as a manager?
First, okay, no problem at all. What I can do is to start off with the agent perspective. When I came in, I seen a high level. When I started at Great Lakes last year in March, actually, I'm going on a full year. I think this month will be my first 1 year anniversary. So when I came in, it was a high level of production, and the tools and the resources that they had helped you gauge on where people were. So I was able to use data analytics to go back and even track the top collectors to see how they performed over the last couple of months. What numbers did they hit the last previous months? How much did they improve as a collector and as an agent month by month by month by month? And that gave me a benchmark to actually hit, and it gave me a benchmark as well to surpass, so I can get to a desired goal that was set for me when I got hired. So sometimes when you go into places, you might see a number and you don't know how they're getting there. You might see actual production, you don't know how they're getting there. So when you use certain tools and you're able to go back and use data analytics, the past history that's being saved in the system that they have here. So it was easy for me to go back and see what each collector was doing, how they were performing, how they were actually hitting their goals, how many deals they were closing on a particular day, how much production were they doing on a particular day. And that gave me the ability to, now I have to put onus on myself as a goal setter to go in there that particular day, every day, and say, you know what, I can't leave here no less hitting this. So typically what I was doing, I was putting in the extra hours that might get me to come to work an extra hour early, work an extra hour after close time. You know what I mean? So what that did was it gave me the availability where they gave me a 24-hour key fob that ever come in on Saturdays. So if I missed my number on Friday, I would come in on Saturdays, call certain people, do certain things, prepare for my Monday mornings. So the actual, as an agent, it depends on how responsible you are. It depends how motivated you are. It depends how successful you want to be. And you use that data and that information that they have for your success as well. So basically it was a collaborative thing for me to put self-onus and self-emphasis on myself of how successful I want to be. You never want to be at the bottom with the tools that we have here, because they will tell you immediately, are you number 10, number 5, number 1, number 3? It'll tell you exactly where you stand as far as your goal.
Can I just say something? Number one, Joe, you're like a dream employee. Okay, so that is not something that you get. It's what's called an intrinsic motivation. You just want to be the best. You just don't want to be. Right. You don't care about number 3, number 2, number 10. You want to be number 1. And right. We look at, the tool is, again, you access that data to help you objectively reach that goal. But also what you've done, and I love that, is that you reverse engineered past success from the previous leaders, right? Or leaders in the organizations. How did they get here? You know, what are some of the behaviors? What are some of the metrics that drove this primary objective? And I think that's an important part of when you're being transparent and you've got data, is reverse engineering that primary objective to identify what are some of the things that will lead you to success, right? And that's part of kind of our onboarding process. It's not just what's my goal for the month. It's, you know, how many phone calls do I have to make to get enough people on the phone, right party contacts, to get enough, you know, opportunities to close a deal, to get enough to close a certain amount of deals, to bring enough dollars that'll help me reach that goal. So it's a combination of everything. And, you know, one final piece is that we also have in our tool is the records, right? So seeing who's been number one all time, you know, in each category.
Wow.
Is a tool that helps motivate the competitive spirit. So that's part of just tapping into everybody's competitive nature, because it's part of most people's innate human nature. But if not, you can extract that and pull that out of them by just making that information available. And, you know, as Titus mentioned earlier, you just let people micromanage themselves. You know, they'll get to that point on their own. Data is available. They'll go to the different places. They're fully engaged, and that's where you're going to get those performance lifts.
Yeah, I get it, and he's right, Joe. I mean, that's the model employee. That's what you want to see, but they're far and few between. The real, I think, point, and Jimmy, you're touching on it, is how do you get the rest? How do you get the middle ground? You have your top, you have your middle, which is the bulk of your workforce, and you have your strugglers. Getting the strugglers up to the middle and middle up to the top. How do you do that? What's the best ways? How do you motivate, lead, coach, whatever it is? And you just mentioned on it, some of those tools, just to get them to see. Maybe they're not competitive. Maybe they don't like they don't like to be on the spot. I mean, Joe, you're looking, you want the top spot, which is great. I mean, not most of us, some of us do shoot for that. That's what they want. That's what pushes us when we get up. But you got to find a way to get that bulk of that, and that's where you are reverse engineering. That's everything you just said. If you take that and you pass it down a level, you show people where they can make those small changes to get that little bit better. How do you get a little bit better? If I could just get this 40% of my staff to go 10% effort more, you know, the ripple effect of that is what's so big. But you know, good for you. I love the push. I love the drive. Yeah, I would love to have a whole team of Joes for sure.
That would be nice.
I think definitely. I think too, it's like the law of the lid. I think I read a book by John Maxwell, and it's one principle is called the law of the lid. So if you have someone at a 10, everybody should be within a 6 to a 10 as far as their production, their progress, and their assertiveness to get to their goal. And if you have people sitting at a 4 or 5, that's when typically management kicks in. That's typically when we see a presence of Titus show up to the office, what's going on. You know what I mean? So typically what Titus instills when he does come in is helps us focus. He helps us keep on track. He does come with the data and analytics. He does not really get too concerned with the minutia of what's going on out there. The numbers show this. You know what I mean? So basically, if the numbers show this, that means you have to do this, and this. And that helps me get prepared to go back out there after those meetings when he do come in and we do have a sit down and he speaks with us and speaks with our administrator here in the office. So now we have a target. Now we have a goal. Now we have a plan. And that's also what goal setting as well. People lack plan when they're getting to their goal. They have a destination, they have a vehicle, but they don't have a route. And that's why you have a GPS in your car. When you get rerouted, you get lost. It tells you when to get back in direction and when to get back on track.
I like that analogy, man. That was great.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure, because I know we're going to talk solutions for a lot of these problems, but I want to throw it to each one of you right now. And Jimmy, put you on the spot. I'm going to start out with you. I would just ask if you can give me a tip for one thing that myself or everyone attending today can do tomorrow to start setting stronger goals, and basically an action item that we could all that we can do. And I'm going to go to each one of you. So Joe and Titus, you got a minute to think about it here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was touched upon in indirect ways, and you actually said the word in the very beginning, smart, right? setting SMART goals. And there's actually an acronym for SMART goals. It's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely, right? So when you say specific, it's not like, hey, I'd love to get, to you over this number. No, figure out the exact number, and that's your specific number. Measurable, you have a tool, you have a report that's going to show you where you are relative to that goal every single day. And then by the end of your target period, that you can compare what your target goal was to the actual. Achievable, achievable is the next one. Joe said it earlier. Don't try to set a target way too high. You're just you set yourself up for failure, and then you're gonna be disappointed at the end. Make sure that it's an achievable and realistic goal. Something that you can actually achieve, and it's realistic. And then timely is set a period. By this date. It's got to be a specific time that you need to achieve that goal by. Don't say, hey, I'd love for you to hit this number and sometime this quarter. No, pick a specific date. So my advice, if there's a takeaway, somebody wants to take away, is SMART, make it really smart.
Thank you. Titus?
Okay, I didn't know Jimmy's one thing was going to be multiple things. So kind of took a lot of the options there. But I'm going to stick to my theme for this call then. Review the data you do have. Review what you currently are doing. And like Joe referenced, if you can review that and you really look at the numbers across whatever KPIs or metrics that you're doing, you're going to find something in some way where there's a lack or an opportunity to improve that, and take that success, and hopefully that would jumpstart something. So again, review the data that you do have.
All right. And Joe, we'll leave you with some final words, huh?
Okay. I think they pretty much covered it and hit the nail on the head. Obviously, you have the review data, and then Jimmy did cover the intrinsic part about it. But to what I would say is pretty much just be confident in your goal. Be confident and then be structured in your goal as well. So when you do have a goal, what I typically tell people is put your number up on the computer. Put your goal so you can see it every day. It's no different than your affirmations in the morning. Well, if you can see it, then you know that you have to do it. If you have it staring at you every day when you sit down at your desk, then make it achievable, make it something that is very structured, and then you should be able to get to it. If you don't hit it, you should be within the ballpark, and then you just keep pushing forward.
Yeah, absolutely. There are very few feelings in the world that compare to achieving a goal that you had set for yourself, no matter how small it is. I try to achieve something every single day and try to improve, and personally, professionally, like we said at the beginning of this talk. That being said, I'd like to really take this opportunity to pass it over to Jimmy, maybe let him talk about solutions for a few minutes, and then we'll see if we have any questions coming in from the audience. Does that sound good?
Yeah. So a lot of kind of what we talked about today was part of kind of the conceptualization of Zizo, and prior to Zizo, we had an earlier iteration of the platform, which is basically a performance management tool, right? So it's important to have access to data, right? So that's what we've all been talking about today is how much data is available, but making it accessible, making it transparent, making it public. So that's a real important part of our tool set. Is it's not a tool just available for managers, right? It's a tool that's available for everybody and gives people insight into their numbers, their data, but also comparing that to their expectations, and then comparing that to their peers. Where do they fall in line with their peers? And building in motivational tools that allow people to allows managers to keep their teams energized and motivated, with objective, fair, transparent contests, tournaments, leaderboards, daily challenges, monthly challenges, weekly challenges. You've got milestones that tracks people's performance over their careers and rewards them, throughout their entire career. That's constantly maintaining a level of engagement that keeps them pushing forward, and they see another, a finish line, like, hey, all I have to do is get that to hit my next reward, and get that to hit my next reward. In addition, I think it's important to recognize your team. And, part of the tool set is to build in that automated recognition. And, with our avatar system, it allows individuals to create their own unique avatar. So it gives them that personal freedom of expression. And, now they have that representative tool or avatar that, when they accomplish something, their avatar pops up on the screen and they get the recognition by their peers. And they get to celebrate, their peers, they get to celebrate their achievements and, collectively as an organization. So, Zizo is built to automate these processes, right? It's to make sure that we don't forget to recognize people, that we don't forget to reward people. And we do it at a micro level, meaning like it's constant. And for a manager to do this manually, it's almost impossible. I would probably venture to guess it is impossible. To do it fairly, to do it objectively is also going to be very, very difficult. And so this tool set is there to give managers that capability, or the organization, not just the managers, but the entire organization, to make sure that they're recognizing and rewarding their agents, to build a culture, to build a sense of belonging, to give people a sense of purpose each and every day, not just 1 week or 1 day, but every day they come in with a sense of purpose. And what that does is it helps, keep your staff on board, and that with a strong culture, you're going to reduce your attrition. People are going to, want to stay more. They're going to help you recruit and bring their friends on board. So that's part of our goal is to help organizations develop a strong culture, to increase the engagement of their employees, to increase retention, and to also increase productivity. So ultimately, and you've heard me say this a million times, Andrew, we want to align the business and the agent's goals. And we do that with a bottom-up approach. We focus on the agent experience. We try to make sure that their experience is the best possible, that they're getting the recognition and the rewards. And ultimately, they stay longer, they're more productive, they're happier, it builds a stronger culture. And that's gonna help the organization meet their objectives, which is everything that I just mentioned. So we'd love to share this tool with everybody. Joe, you've been using it, since you started with Great Lakes Processing, and you've had experience not using the tool. And there's a clear difference, when to try to develop and manage a team with and without the right tool sets.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I know how much we obviously love Zizo, but I mean, I know from, I've seen some of your early gamification processes and some of your early trial and error, attempts at managing teams, even when I worked for you a decade ago. And that actually brings up, we got a question from the audience that I love. And I wanted to, I'm curious to know, each one of you can take a stab at this. But do any of you have an example where you set a bad goal for your team? What happened, and maybe what you learned from it?
The operators answer first. Joe, do you have an example of that?
Wow. I think in using the platform that you have, you can set audacious goals. Like on a Friday, we want to generate $600,000 in production, and we can leave at a certain time. You know what I mean? And then we have this mountain of work that we have to do prior to getting the ability to get to that goal. So I think sometimes what happens is we come in excited, we want to set a goal, and what ends up happening is we don't hit the goal. And typically with this platform that you do have, it tells you immediately when you don't hit it, because you're not rewarded. You're not rewarded with the goal. So sometimes you get pushback from the staff of, why would they set this type of goal? It's Friday, we have this much to do, we had this to do, and it was too far off of what we should have been set. So it kind of magnifies the energy and puts energy directly on your back. And it almost like, to me, being on the floor every day, it puts a direct bullseye on your back of, wow, I think that one was a bad one. You know what I mean? So sometimes you just gotta self-analyze, and it helps you structure when you set your goal next time on what day. That helps you with the system as well, because you're able to go back and see what are the most productive days, what are the days that we do the best, what are the days that we do the worst, what are the days we're more productive, and things of that nature. So you tend to want to set goals, maybe a long-term goal, a monthly goal, as opposed to a day goal. You know what I mean? So it helps me go back around and actually, this particular goal here is for a month, this one is for a week, this one is for a day. And this one is for, hey, if you bust your butt, then we can get up out of here, and it helps get the focus up and gets them back on track. But a bad goal in itself is with Zizo, it's a goal that you can set a goal, and if you push it too far out, and if you make it too high, you don't hit it, they don't get rewarded, and then that automatically puts the energy, because it's the energy that goes on around you. They might not talk to you directly, but you hear the chirping of the floor.
Wow, thank you for your honesty. That's good to know. I know what it's. I've been there. I've been on both sides of that as well. Jimmy, Titus, any examples of bad goals you've set in the past that you learned from?
I'd have to kind of take on what he said about the too long of a goal. And early on, we thought having good success, it's a good time. Let's ride the momentum. Let's make some crazy contest. Let's put up a monster prize, and we'll run it for 2 months. And not thinking people's attention span is just not always there. They came out hot. They're super excited. The energy's there. And if you're not thinking it through in segments, and you're not parsing it out, and there's no real way to keep that at the forefront of their minds, it was eventually faded away. You have this grand prize, and by week 3, it's out of everyone's mind. It's not moving the needle. There's no energy. It's not, and then the pressure's on the manager to try to bring that back to life. Then it's over. Then that whole wave is faded, and you're wondering, how do I get out of this? And there's not. So you take a huge loss on that. Valuable lesson to learn, that if you're going to go big, like Joe said, it's a big audacious goal, and you're going to compensate just equally. You got to make sure that you have that planned out, and you can keep that in their face, keep that energy alive, keep that needle moving in the right direction.
Right. Just to piggyback, just before you go, Jimmy.
Good.
Titus, we must have had a conversation that we didn't have, because we have this goal now that's been going on for 2 months in our tax season goal, and we should have did the drawing last month, and now they're checked out, and now you're not getting the energy that you want this particular month. But we should have drew it the end of last month and did a new goal for this month, but we ran it for 60 days plus days, and it's almost like dead. It's almost like the energy is not there. Some of them don't even collect their prizes. Some of them don't even collect their raffle tickets anymore. You know what I mean? I would sit there and see them post. They don't even ask for the incentives for getting that goal and getting the drawing. So you just want to make sure that you put a time frame. You make it quick where the energy is high. You make it to where they're able to get that goal and get that incentive quickly. You know what I mean? Because it's adrenaline. Everything in my industry is adrenaline. So quick goals, quick rewards, and keep them going. And then every day, keep them on their toes, which will help the production and the overall success of the business.
Yeah, we've been there. We've been exactly in this spot before. So yeah, I wish I had known that, because I would have told you about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of put a bow on that, I think you've heard them both say it's about energy, right? So it's about energy management. It's just making sure that you have momentum, and people don't really understand the power of momentum. You really need to study it and really get a feel and get in tune with the energy on your floor. I do believe you can still do long-term audacious goals, but you have to combine that with smaller incremental goals along the way. So you can break down, like, part of the EOS model in traction is to create a 10-year audacious goal, but you break it down. So even if you're going to do a 3-month goal, right? Or let's just call it a 1-month goal, 1-month contest, have a 1-week contest that has at least a quarter of the monthly goal involved in that, and then just break it down into weekly increments and combine that with the monthly target. So there's always energy. So again, you're pushing energy, and you just want to manage that energy. So people will stay focused on the weekly, but they won't lose sight of the monthly. So I think you can combine the two. So it is about managing energy. So, but I think we beat that horse to death. So.
Yeah, I think that's good. We are starting to wind down, but I think we have time for one more, and I really am curious to know what you guys have to say about this. We got from one of our questions here that basically, can you share how you stay fresh and up to date, whether it's vlogs or blogs or socials or books, just on good management practices, keeping up with the modern workforce, and what tools, what people do you use? Do you have any recommendations?
For me, I'll just go real quick. Again, my focus on gamification and the impact of it, and there's a book, Reality is Broken, by Jane McGonigal. It's a great book. It really solidified and reinforced that this is a tool that can be used effectively, and it's kind of, I use that to inspire me to develop certain features within our platform. So it's a great book to read if anybody hasn't read it.
It's a culmination of books. I try to stay reading, and again, I'll go back to data and the technology. My Kindle will tell me when my reading time is down. I get notifications with all the books on my wish list. I try to stay as up to date as I can on any facet of advanced leadership, coaching, mentoring, and then how to manage that. Again, we're getting away from, Jimmy said, we go agent on up, bottom up, but there's a middle ground, and it's some of us here. How do we manage that? Managing other people and then managing ourselves, our time frame. If I'm using technology, I'm going to say my Apple Watch. You gotta be able to coach yourself as well. Make sure I got my fitness in, my steps in, my calories in, hydration, so again, wrap it up: technology and a lot of reading.
Joe?
Oh, okay. Yep. I suggest 2 books that I read. Actually, I read them every year. The first book is Who Moved My Cheese, and the second book is As a Man Thinketh. So actually, I deal with the psychology, and Who Moved My Cheese pretty much lets you know when it's time for you to move on, and when it's time for you to pivot, when it's time for you to transition, and so you can stay ahead of the curve and not be left behind, and make sure that you keep your emotions of entitlement in check. And As a Man Thinketh is just a mindset thing, just pretty much being grateful and understanding that nothing lasts forever, and be grateful for what you have, and plan, and pretty much just move forward and understand. So, and I do a lot of podcasts, obviously leadership podcasts and YouTubes and things of that nature. So you don't have to subscribe, or if you don't have Apple, but I do a lot of YouTube leadership podcasts in my car. So I use my car as an institution, as opposed to listening to music. I just turn on a podcast or turn on a YouTube station, keep me focused and keep me going.
Excellent. Well, on that note, gentlemen, I spent a lot of time on your intros, and I didn't put a whole lot of effort into the conclusion. I just want to say thank you guys. You all brought a unique perspective to the table. For those of you who are out there listening and you're interested in what Zizo has to offer, feel free to shoot me an email or a LinkedIn message. It's andrew@zizo.ai. Gentlemen, I hope your weekend is great. Everybody who's attending, I hope your weekend is tremendous as well. And I look forward to doing this again with you guys in the future.